creating as much as I can. I'm on Facebook, I made this little image, but like, and I made these signs, and I wonder why there are lines in the sky. But it's like, it's really, you know, I wanted something that rhymed. So let's just tear through this. This is gonna be like 65 slides. And Ted's here, yay Ted!
Hi, sorry.
I've been hanging out with Ted all day. He had to get some food in his belly. We were over in Klamath Falls and there's some snow, but here he is. Yeah. Okay, so, speaks for itself. Chemtrails. We talk about what they are, and like, I didn't really know how to put this presentation together because I didn't know, like, that I'm sure there's a few of you that don't think, you know, like, where do we stand? Like, does everybody think that chemtrails are bad? You know what I mean? Like, did you know about this?
Can you go back?
What's that?
Can you go back one?
Okay, so why are we here? We're here to raise awareness, discuss the persistent linear cirrus cloud formations. We want to raise awareness on the problem and educate ourselves to the point to be able to continue the awareness raising and spread the word, because we need to reach a critical mass to move on to the next level, okay? I want to initiate a response with you all. Initiate an initial response. Offer an educational solution. Knowledge is power, right? So an overview of chemtrails. All right, so this is all just like the background because I didn't know if you guys know a lot, but if you're really interested, you can find all this on the internet. But the thing is the first 4 sites are going to be things telling you that it's bogus. Like if you look up, I don't know where we stand on 9/11, but if you look up 9/11, the first 3 pages are going to tell you why the official story is accurate. Like you really have to look at both sides and be a critical thinker to understand what's really going on with GMOs, with vaccines, with even fracking. You know, but fracking is a really easy one to point a finger at. Okay, so what we've got here is these chemical trails, okay? There's these persistent trails in the sky. They've been termed a conspiracy theory. They've been seen in grid patterns. Around 1995 is when they really started being more prominent, okay? I'm not saying that there weren't lines in the sky in the 80s, but in 1995 is when we really saw an uptick, and we'll talk about why later on in the presentation, okay? There's been purposes presented by Al Gore and other climate scientists and universities talking about weather modification and dimming the planet to save ourselves from ourselves because, of course, we're heating the planet, okay? We're heating the planet and we need to save ourselves by dimming the planet is what this disinformation is trying to convince us that needs to happen, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today primarily. Okay, so the difference. You've got one that is behind the plane that dissipates immediately, and then you've got another one tearing by that produces a haze and they act differently. And you see these things act differently because they're different chemical compositions. Some will stick there all day, some will go into a haze, some will twist around and do all these crazy things because they're hitting them with different frequency waves and they're different chemical concoctions. Sometimes it's lithium, sometimes it's this and that. So what exactly is a contrail? Let's talk about what a contrail is first, okay? It's a lot of reading, but it's sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and water, okay? These things are made up of, it's basically jet fuel being burned, and you get a few simple things out of it, nothing that should persist this long, and nothing that should act the way these chemicals act in the atmosphere. Like some of them drip. I mean, like it's not, what we're seeing isn't this. Next, please. So let's get one thing clear. When we look at these compounds, they're colorless. When kerosene burns, it's similar to jet fuel. Okay, kerosene and jet fuel are in the same category. You shouldn't see anything more than the moisture you get out of your breath at a cold day, which disappears. Okay, it's hot air. I pity the fool who finds this normal. I consider taking that out. That's awesome, right? Okay, so you can see these persistent linear cloud formations from outer space. There's a global. Can we click it one more time? There's a global geoengineering campaign going on, and literally when it's on the edge of these storm systems, they're steering the clouds, they're creating high and low pressure, using these metallic dispersants and hitting them with frequency waves. You lay out this metal dust, and if you heat it up, then you have an updraft. You have a high pressure turn. I mean, like remember when we used to watch TV and they had like an H and an L floating around the screen, moving around weather patterns? They can create those H's and L's on their own. I mean, it's really, the military-industrial complex, we'll say, could, if they wanted to, given their technology and patents and capabilities, they could create those H and L's if they wanted to. Let's go next one, please. Yeah, this. I mean, let's go back one more. Look at this. Like, I mean, this is not water vapor tearing through a cloud. Like, water vapor would not tear through a cloud and split something open. This is an instance of aluminum dust being laid out and frequency waves rippling through it and creating this effect, okay? This is not water vapor. This is so persistent. These lines last too long, they interact with one another, and there's too many of them. Like, these aren't flight patterns, okay? These are not normal flat patterns. 5 reasons chemtrails are not contrails. Anybody who wants this PowerPoint, I actually have a group where I put all this stuff up on Facebook, I'll email anybody this. And anything that's not right, like this relative humidity of 72%, like I'm not even sure that this stands anymore. This is a slightly older fact that I pulled up. This 72% is based on these older jet engines. The new jet engines, they don't have any lines out of them ever. Not even with perfect atmospheric conditions. The lines that we see are impossibly made with the situation that we're being presented, basically. Okay, so you see these things from space. All right, this isn't water vapor. If you see these persistent trails from space last this long, they should never persist for as long as they do, and it billows and forms into a milky haze. All right. Another reason, the irregular pattern of appearance, number of trails seen simultaneously at a given time. Okay, so Scott Stevens I'm just gonna talk about my own personal situation. Scott Stevens is one of these activists that I hunted down for this documentary that I'm working on. I'll talk about the documentary as well. He was a 20-year meteorologist, climatologist for nationwide television broadcast in the United States, New York, Kansas, Colorado. Okay, ABC, like major news broadcasts. When he listed them off, there was like 20 channels he's worked for. He's very trustworthy and well known. In the mid-90s, he stopped being able to predict the weather accurately, Scott Stevens, okay? And his followers were like, why can't you predict the weather anymore? So he started doing 24-hour time-lapse of the sky. After 5 years of studying his 24-hour time-lapse in Colorado, he realized that it wasn't that he was like totally flawed in his models, is that there was this interaction between these linear cirrus cloud formations. Like literally there'd be a line in the sky with a gap in it, and then another plane would go right in the middle of that gap and fill the line at a perpendicular angle. And so he started realizing that they were literally laying out these grids in the sky and doing, like literally sectioning off 1 square mile and then working it through, and then sectioning off another mile and working it, and literally they were just working the weather patterns over his house. It took him 5 years, 24-hour time lapse to realize this. So these irregular pattern occurrence and these, basically I wanted to talk about the relationship between these lines because it's beyond correlation. And so Scott Stevens, he woke up to it. He abandoned his computer models, okay? And he started using his know-how from these linear cloud formation. And he said, well, if these lines are doing this and doing this, then this is what the weather's gonna be like tomorrow. And he started nailing it. And because his off-camera activism started bleeding into his job, and people were like, well, how can you predict the weather now? We all can't. He lost his job. And then he became, more active, and he's in my film. He's going to come to Vancouver to speak at the first annual Global Chemtrail Summit that I'm hosting on May 7th. But let's just go to that, please. He's amazing. Scott Stevens is really great. Yeah, the broken lines. Like, they're not turning off the engines, and they're not hitting little pockets of hot and cold air. That's a ridiculous explanation. Next, please. Okay, so keep going, please. You've got instances where it's not even you've got instances where the chemicals are being released from where the engines are not, okay? There's no engines where these lines are being formed. And I just invested in my second production company. I've got one in Vancouver, now one in California. I bought a lens this big, and my documentary is gonna really get in on these things and show you what's really going on, which is actually beyond what we even could conceptualize. But so moving forward, please. So what's in chemtrails, okay? Well, there's a lot of stuff, honestly, and if you watch, there's an EPA hearing last summer, okay? It was an Environmental Protection Agency hearing on jet fuel emissions and whether jet fuel emissions were affecting the environment, okay? Well, we ended up with Patrick Roddy out of San Francisco there, luckily. Also, 5 other activists, Max Bliss out of Paris, a bunch of names that I don't know if everyone's even familiar with, so it's not that important. But Patrick Roddy from San Francisco, he's got a website, stopsprayingus-sf.com, stopsprayingus-sanfrancisco.com. He spoke at the EPA hearing. He talked about these sundogs. Okay, these are not a natural occurrence in water vapor atmosphere. The refractory rate of water is not complementary. The refractory rate of water doesn't make circles around the sun. Okay, but different chemical compounds, such as the aluminum, just hit escape. Okay, so, but what does make these circles around the sun, these rare sundog halos around the sun, are the refractory rates of these certain chemicals such as aluminum oxide, barium, and strontium. As well as these things like lithium that, I'm sorry, our organs get sprayed with lithium, it's horrible, okay? These compounds, dispersed methods are in various patents and for weather manipulation. So if you kind of trace back, you see what's going on in the skies. You see these persistent lines and like I mean, come on, like seriously? And then you've got these sundogs around the sun that are extremely rare, that do not happen over just water because of the simple refractory rate of water. So Patrick exposed that at the EPA hearing. He asked why the EPA had stopped testing the air for heavy metals such as aluminum, barium, and strontium in the early 2000s, and is basically calling them out, and as he should. So let's move forward, please. So this is a high bypass turbofan jet engine. This is the new technology that's been around for the past decade. These engines pride themselves in their efficiency and the fact that they only release hot air from the back of the engines, okay? We're not seeing hot air, all right? So you can do some research and you can see these different stances by the activists. Some activists say that we never should have chemtrails because of these engines. My stance is if they get to the perfect atmospheric conditions, altitude, moisture, and temperature, then yes, you can get a contrail, which is a little line on the back of these engines, but that is the only situation where you will end up with a contrail, okay? These high bypass turbine, these things don't produce chemtrails. Moving forward, please, because we got a lot of slides. I'm gonna try to tear through this. Okay, so Kylie Jenner, if we had a little, I'm sure somebody in here knows who this is. Kylie Jenner is the sister of Kim Kardashian. She's famous only because she is a Kardashian, okay? She's like 19 years old, but she is a critical thinker, and last May she tweeted, she's one of the top 10 Twitter people followed on Earth. She's #1 on Snapchat on Earth, and she's like top 10 Instagram. She's got the youth, okay? And what we want to do is get the youth because the next generation is going to be totally brainwashed, right? I mean, sorry to say, the next generation is not going to be aware of what's going on. They don't have the critical thinking mindset. They didn't have a card catalog or library or any of this stuff. Like, they don't know how to... They're not as tangible in the critical thinking skills that the older generation has. I'm sorry. They're learning things off of... It's different, okay? We need to target the youth, and people like this need to speak up more often. So Kylie Jenner, even though she spells responsible wrong, she nails it on the head a few different times, okay? Why are some days normal with no plane sprain, and other days look like this? She's in Los Angeles, and she's totally nailing these really pertinent points. Like, come on, these are really good points. Like, she's on it, okay? She didn't speak up after this. I don't know if she was spoken to or if someone said, hey, look, your conspiracy theorists don't go down that route, you know, whatever. But either way, we need more people like this. There's other people that are speaking out that I'm reaching out to for the film and the conference. One of them is Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins lead singer. He stops concerts in front of hundreds of thousands of people. He's like, do you all know about geoengineering and chemtrails? Because this is serious. This is ongoing. Roseanne Barr talks about chemtrails. Other activist-minded, like-minded celebrities speak out, but not enough. We need more. Next, please. So Ted Gunderson is former FBI chief. He spoke out against chemtrails, okay? This guy's an LA FBI chief, okay? He's dead now. I'm sorry, his death may have been questionable, but that doesn't matter. He spoke out against this years ago, okay? Years ago. He called them death dumps because chemicals were being dumped. He started his own website, poisonspray.com or something like that. There's a lot of different websites out there, but he's not alive, so it's like I try to push websites that are active with people like Patrick Roddy that are actually still alive. Keep going. So what are chemtrails for? I put together this collage. Isn't that beautiful? Or horrible? Keep going. Ongoing geoengineering is what chemtrails are for. So you see, before, during, and after, right? Like, water vapor in the past never did this. So why would water vapor in the present do it? Keep going, please. So we get a timeline, so we can be critical thinkers and actually line this out. 1915, they decided, well, hey, we've got drought in San Diego, what are we going to do? This scientist sprayed a chemical concoction up in the atmosphere in 1915, primarily made of silver dust, because that's where 30 years later they ended up saying, oh, if we just spray silver in the atmosphere, we can see these clouds. He made it flood. He burst dams in 1915. So if he can do it in 1915, then why is California saying that we're in a catastrophic drought and we don't know what to do? 1915, San Diego made it flood. Cloud seeding in the 20th century. So we've got all sorts of history, and I try to just pull a little bit about it from the past, just to give you the heads up on, like, 1946, these people are doing it. 1950s, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they made it dump rain over the Ho Chi Minh Trail because that was the main trade route in Vietnam. Okay, so they wanted to let's just keep going. What does it all mean? Government weather modifications has been in use for decades. It's a black ops project. The drought is being caused on purpose to push their agenda. They have climate engineering, they have storm manipulation projects, and there's a planned agenda at hand, okay? Even in 1961, and I love JFK, and I hate to use him in a negative context, but he knew the route that they were going. They had the technology. They were gonna, but he probably, let's just hope that he would have controlled it for the, better or something. Okay, so modern geoengineering, okay? We've got people in the 60s all the way up to 83 in this project Storm Fury, okay? The government has been at it for years. There's a global sunscreen project to put metallic dust, you can go to the next one please. That global dimming project, hit it one more please. That global dimming project, no, go back. The left area, okay. So that global dimming project is a proposal to put atmospheric dust, aluminum dust in the atmosphere, again, save us from ourselves, even though we don't need it, to reflect the sun back into the atmosphere so we don't get as much solar rays on Earth. Less vitamin D, kills plants. But Al Gore, when he went on Ellen, and I should have these clips. I have so many clips I can show, but I'm just going to tear through this one. There's a clip of Al Gore on Ellen, and he says, don't worry, the plants are going to die, but we need to save ourselves from ourselves, right? He's talking about the polar bears, talking about the CO2. We're carbon-based life forms, okay? I'm sorry, but the CO2 thing is just a big sham. That's what I'm sticking to, and I'm just going to keep preaching it. Okay, so this guy, so here we are. Chemtrails are conspiracy theory, right? Chemtrails are crazy, and your conspiracy theory if you use the word chemtrails. Then how come in 2001, this HR 2977, they are asking this global treaty, hit it one more time, global treaty, Congress bill, one more time, to not have chemtrails to use as weapons against each other. But there was a little clause saying you can use it against your domestic population, okay? Which is kind of, give me a break. So this is when it gets really crazy, okay? And I don't mean to take it down this fearful route, but in the end, we got to be empowered with knowledge. And in the end, we need to take it all into our own hands because, seriously, we are the change that we need to see in the world. We have to make a difference, okay? So that's why I'm sharing this stuff.